Hey everybody, this is Fight Club Hubs of GVN. Today's special guest is Jeff Tarzia of SmashJT. Welcome to GVN Live.
I know my future is, but it'll never be our best. You can distance in your world, you'll never ever change the past. Yeah.
And welcome once again to another wonderful episode of GVN Live. As I've mentioned, our special guest today is Jeff Tarzia of SmashJT. And of course, with me as always is Mark B. Writing. And unfortunately, Jan is not here with us right now. Hopefully, she will join us at some point during the show. So, that was a weird blurt. What was that?
Don't know.
Okay, maybe it was just something with my headphones in. But anyway, we'll go around clockwise. Let's start with you, Mr. Mark. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine and dandy. How are you?
I am actually, I was tired earlier in the day, and I'm feeling a lot better now. So, let's get to our special guest here. Jeff, we are actually going to start the show right off with an interview. We're going to get to know you and about you and what you do and all that other stuff and what you did before. So,
I feel so.
oh, your mic's cutting out there, but let's start off with how are you feeling today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us. For most people who don't know, you are a YouTuber on you. Kind of redundant for me to say the platform after I mentioned what your job is, but yes, you are a YouTuber and you talk about games. You usually report daily on the news and stuff like that, right? Give us a rundown, really, of what your channel is all about.
Oh man, my channel ultimately, at the end of the day, because it's kind of a smorgasbord of what I feel like doing any given day, which is not a good way to do a channel, kids. But my channel basically is focusing on educating and entertaining and providing intel on the world of video games, retro and modern, and whatever catches my eye, I want to talk about. I talk about it, whether it's something that comes out minutes ago or I'm playing a game from 20 years ago and I want to talk about it. I'm going to do it.
So you have a different assortment of like videos that you like to put out almost daily, as a matter of fact. What are some of the videos that you usually try to throw out there as quickly as possible? I mean, you seem to have almost 2 videos a day at some point.
Sometimes, depending on the day, and I'll tell you, doing 2 videos a day for anyone thinking of getting into YouTube or just starting, it's a lot to put out multiple videos in a day. But the reason why I do it is to keep up with heavy hitting news and keep people in the know with what's going on and give my perspective on it. And I've carved out a small little niche audience that for one reason or another cares about my opinion on it. So I'm just running with that. I've done in the past, I don't know if you're going to go there or not, but I'll just go there right now. In the past, I've been a QA game tester for Sony Online Entertainment. I've been game master for EverQuest Online Entertainment, EverQuest Online Adventures, excuse me. And I was also a recruiter for a company called Wired Talent, which was basically a recruiting firm in the video game industry. So my job back in the day was YouTube was focused on interviewing other people like you're doing right now to me. Basically, I'd be sitting across the desk from them, talking to them about video games, what they like, what they don't like. Depending on the position I'd be hiring for, whether it be a QA tester, or developer, or artist, or anything in between. There were so many different. It was basically any position in the video game industry you could think of. I would be interviewing people for that and talk about the best job I've ever had. It's just able to talk video games. Like I'd tell people, I'd sit across the table from them and be like, "Tell me what your favorite games are and why." And it was funny because they hired me because originally I was at Sony Online Entertainment. They knew I had a gaming background and they thought I'd be a good fit for relating to the layperson, relating to people who wanted to get into the video game industry because I had been there. I also had not been there, so I knew what it took to get into the industry, and they felt like I was a good bridge to that. And oftentimes, my manager would sit into meetings and stuff with me, and she'd see the questions I'd be asking people, and she'd be like, "My God, like that's nothing I would ever ask somebody." But then at the end of the day, she'd be like, "I see why you asked that, and it makes sense because now we found out if this person's going to be a good fit for thing on this specific game or in the environment at this specific company." And I worked with EA, Square Enix, Sony Online Entertainment, obviously, Sony proper in downtown San Diego, lesser known companies like Nexon, NHN. Uh, there was so many. Midway, Rockstar. Apparently, there's a Rockstar in Carlsbad, California, or at least there was 8 years ago when I was doing it. I don't know if there still is, but there were so many video game companies I would go to on site, meet with the managers, talk with them, see the actual entryways and the cubicle areas of where the games got made, and it was stuff of dreams for someone who is a video game fanatic like myself. And I am rambling right now, so sorry about that.
No, it's absolutely not. I actually really enjoy listening to stories that people have about their involvement in the video game industry. Mark will tell you probably one of the best and most fun interviews we've ever had was with Al Lowe that we did on the Die Hard podcast about 5 years ago now, Mark?
I think it was somewhere around about that time.
Yeah, somewhere. And it wasn't just like the stories about what he did in the video game industry, it was how he got into it, and it was just so fascinating to listen to. And what you're saying and how you got involved in the video game industry is just really fascinating to listen to. So let me ask you a question about being a game tester. I have a friend who used to be a game tester for Bethesda, as a matter of fact, and it was around the time he left around a little bit after Skyrim came out. Of course, he's trying to pursue his own independent game development career, but he would talk about just the huge lengths of time he would spend just trying to break games and stuff like that. Did you? What are your experiences for doing stuff like that as a game tester?
Some of the wildest moments of my employment career came as a game tester. It's a very unstable industry. It's a very unstable job in an unstable industry. You could be working there 1 week and am I there? There we go. You could be working there 1 week and then cut the next week. Who knows where you're going to be from one day to another as a QA tester. And oftentimes I would be going into work not knowing if it was going to be the last week I was going to be there. Sometimes didn't know if it was going to be the last day I was going to be there. So with that in mind, you had to go in with the mindset of, I need to make an incredible difference today. I need to do something that blows my manager away to make them have to keep me here, because I saw people start dropping like flies around me, and it was depressing. It was sad. It was, I mean, you make friends with people you work with, and then one day you go in and they'll be like, oh yeah, we cut 4 people today. Okay. As far as my memories from being a game tester, it's very different than what anybody would think being a QA tester is. I mean, it's not like you sit there and play a video game. Sometimes you do, but very rarely. It's not like Grandma's Boy, the movie. It's nothing like that whatsoever. It's not even close to that. And unfortunately, people see a movie and they'll just like start automatically relating to what it's like because that's what they saw on the big screen. As far as being a game tester specifically, some days I'd go in there and put a headset on and just listen to the music tracks and make sure that none of them skipped. Some days I'd go in and make sure that all the sound effects for all the weapons would make the proper sound effects. If you swing a sword, you want the sword swing instead of a gunshot. Like things that you would think are so obvious, things that come naturally would get screwed up by developers, not because they're inept, not because they're bad at their job, just because there's so much to balance. There's so much to do on their plate that obvious mistakes will slip right through the cracks, and then you got to report them. Oh, this gun is making a sword swinging sound when you shoot it. Like it's not making the right sound. Or I picked up the spread gun and it's shooting a laser beam. Like basic stuff like that, where they need to adjust what they did. I will give a brief story before I end my monologue here. Something that kept me in the position for the long run there was finding one game breaking bug that nobody else found in the game I was testing. It was called Cash Guns Chaos. And oh, hey, Grumpy Munchkins is here. Hello, Grumpy. The game was called Cash Guns Chaos, and I would be playing through the game. It was basically a top-down shoot 'em up, similar to SmashTV, which is how I got my channel name. When people ask me, "How'd you get your channel name?" The first game I tested was similar to SmashTV, which is where I came up with my initials, SmashJT. And you got to a certain level. I believe it was like a desert level, an old Western theme level. You just randomly would be walking around and you die, and people would be like, "No, you just got hit by a bullet there. That's why you died." I'm like, "I know I didn't get hit by a bullet." So long story short, pulled out the VCR, put out a videotape, put it into the VCR, press record, because this is the technology we had back in 2007. You don't have to even go back that far.
VCRs are still around in 2007.
VCRs.
Amen.
This is the recording equipment we had. I had a PlayStation 3 at my desk before the PlayStation 3s even came to market, before they even showed pictures online what they even look like.
And they still had composite too back then. Go figure.
Yeah, exactly. And they were recording my footage, and I'm like, right there. See, I died right there, and I know I didn't get hit by a bullet. And they're like, "Oh, that enemy is close enough to you." Probably. I'm like, no, there's something going on with this game. And long story short, they sent me over to the dev. I sat with him in a different building, and we talked about it for about 2 hours about what was happening to me. And it turns out that on that level, for whatever reason, when you killed the enemies, they would disappear, but sometimes they wouldn't die. So if you walked over where they disappeared, you would be killed by them. And I found that bug, and the developer that was working on it was like, "Oh my god, like this almost shipped with this crazy bug in it. Thank God you found this." And ever since that point, they kept me on all the way to the end of the project, and then put me on future games after that, then put me on EverQuest Online Adventures. And I think if I never found that bug, who knows where my life would be at this point. So it was stuff like that. You never know, but you always had to have an eye for such critical details that the average layperson that doesn't really play video games might just chalk up to, "Oh, I suck at this. Oh, I died here," whatever. Just stuff like that. So that's the end of my monologue there.
So, after about, 15 years in the game industry you were in, you decided to make a big transition, which was becoming a YouTuber and talking about gaming news and stuff like that. What was the thought process that eventually led you down this path?
My last employment before starting YouTube was working at Qualcomm, and as a technical writer for cell phones, data management, and at times video games, because Qualcomm has a video game division as well, and a lot of people don't even know about that. Visiting their video game room was insanely epic, and it's on like the 20th floor of one of their 56 buildings in San Diego, and it's just this little cubby of an office, and it's the most amazing video game office I've ever seen in my life. But anyways, they going through terminations and cutbacks, and I was working there as a temp, and they kept extending my contract until they couldn't extend it anymore, and they weren't allowed to. They went on during terminations, so my contract ended, my time there lapsed, and I found myself at home, and I'm like, well, I could start looking for another job, or I start talking about video games on YouTube. I mean, I got 2 kids, and paying for a babysitter is expensive as hell in California. So I figured I'd start making YouTube videos to pass the time while I was working for a job. And I'd have interview after interview and keep being passed over for other people that were getting laid off at Qualcomm with 20 years experience over someone who was at Qualcomm for 2.5 years. So I kind of chalked up to, okay, this isn't working. I need to find another area where I can have possible success, but more importantly, purpose. And YouTube gave me that purpose.
And how did you come about, like, the format for your show? Like, you do news-based, where the moment it comes out, you post a video with your thoughts and opinions on it. So how do you manage to keep your show fresh from, like, other people, let's say, like RGT and other people like Richard Review Tech, who pound their videos out pretty much just as often, maybe even more frequently?
You know, it's tough. It's really tough. I look to them as inspiration for work ethic because they are some of the hardest working people on YouTube. And I've actually spoken to each of them, in addition to plenty of others, on YouTube directly to gain some knowledge as far as what works for them, what doesn't. And to be honest, from a personal perspective, I didn't start really doing the news per se until 8 or 9 months into my 1.5 year long YouTube career. Like, I was posting my top 10 Nintendo 64 games, or top 10 cheapest NES games, or top 10 hardest NES games. There's a lot of top 10 stuff and of retro games, and they weren't getting any views, and I didn't know why. But then I posted a video once on a story that caught my eye about Daddy 05 and how he was treating his kids so poorly, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with that situation, but are you familiar with this Daddy 05 situation, Mark? Or
I'm afraid not.
I'm not aware who Daddy 05 is, honestly. I've never heard of him.
Maybe he has
Okay.
a name that we might actually be more familiar with.
No, he's Daddy 05.
Just
He
Daddy
was
05?
covered by Philip DeFranco, and basically it's just
Oh, well, I know Philip DeFranco. Who doesn't?
Yeah, and Philip DeFranco covered the story, which is where I first heard about it. But basically, it was just a neglectful, child-abusing dad that was really aggressive with his kids. And
Oh, is that the guy who, like, would do all these, like, pranks on his kids and stuff?
Yes.
Oh, God, that guy. Yeah. Ew.
And I will tell you, I watched that story, then I watched some of his videos, and it struck a chord with me about how awful of a human being the dude was. And I made a video talking about it. Like, I was like, this is a departure from what I usually do, but I mean, he's throwing video games at the kids, so I guess it relates that way. But it's a YouTube channel; I can do what I want with it, and here I go. And I made that video, and it was the best performing video I made up to that point. It had, like, I don't remember, like 1,500 views. And for a channel that has, at the time, like 65 subscribers, that was crazy, getting 1,500 views. Most of my videos would get like 20 views, max. So I was like, okay, so that story worked, and I was passionate about it. Maybe I should start covering stories that I'm passionate about that are more in line with what people want to hear about, because believe it or not, I went into YouTube thinking that people cared about my opinion. I went into it thinking, okay, I'll put this video out, and I'd go to sleep, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and I'd check the views on it, because I'd be like, oh my God, is it going viral? Oh my God, am I super popular right now? Oh my God, and I'd be freaking out, and it'd be like 7 views. I'm like, no, okay. And it was a very humbling experience, because when you first start YouTube, if you don't know anything, which was me, I knew nothing about YouTube. I went into it thinking every video people make gets thousands and thousands of views, and usually millions of views. So better put out the best content possible, because you don't want to put out a video and get thousands of views and be verbally assaulted by keyboard warriors. And The truth couldn't be further from that. It was basically the complete opposite, where I found out there was an entire underground community, if you will, of YouTubers that were struggling to be successful and didn't know what it took to be successful, and I was one of them. Um, and I'm still one of them. I've been humbled so many times. It's literally beyond the point of being funny right now. I I'm so truly blessed and honored to have over 5,000 subscribers right now, and I thought when I first started YouTube that that would be simple, and that it would be so easy. It would be a breeze. I'd be at 5,000 in no time, and reality set in, and I realized just how hard it was to get a subscriber and how important each individual person is. No matter how big I've gotten, every single time I get a subscriber, a part of me feels like, wow, somebody, a new person cares about what I say. A new person cared enough to hit the subscribe button, and it means a tremendous amount to me. Whereas I was so childish a year and a half ago, where I just flippantly thought, hey, people will care about me because I'm talking. And that's not how the world works whatsoever.
So, looking back at the way YouTube has pretty much changed, the lives of a lot of people. I mean, we've seen the rise of people like James Rolfe and Doug Walker, and let's say the happy video game nerd, the gaming historian, the first generation, as I like to call them. Then you have the second generation, which is people like Angry Joe and Richard Review Tech, and what's the other guy's name? Heavy Metal Jesus. And now you're part of what I would say is the next wave of, gaming YouTubers that are coming in with, you and RGT and a bunch of others who are trying to pretty much, find your place and your footing in the YouTube culture.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with, say, the earlier generations of YouTubers, how is your relation with, like, some of them? Are they very helpful? Are they friendly? Are some of them actually kind of assholish to you? You don't even have to say names.
No, I'm not going to hold back. I mean, I don't need to hold back. Every single person I've dealt with has been beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I understand how busy they all are.
Mm-hmm.
And they still have made time to speak with me. Not always. I've reached out multiple times in the past to no avail. I've gotten frustrated about it, and then I realized, why the hell do they care about a pissant like me? Like they must get this 30 plus times a day. I mean, if you're 500, 600,000 subscribers, you probably get it 100 times a day. So once I got that in my mind, I didn't hold a grudge against them, because I understand how many people must be at them all the time, and it's got to be exhausting. With that being said, I've been truly blessed. I had RGT85 reached out to me back when I was at around 900 subscribers, and he invited me onto his channel to talk about NES classics, because a video I made he was inspired by. And that blew me away, because he saw me cover a topic that he didn't even know about or think about, and he wanted to cover it and give me a shout out. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. And at the time, he had like 35 or 38,000 subscribers, whereas now he has like 105 or whatever thousand. And then after that, it led to a follow-up video on Woodhawker's Beat 'em Ups channel, and they invited me on for a roundtable discussion for my thoughts on the NES Classic. And I was like, heart beating, having palpitations. Oh my god, I'm going on a channel with, at the time, Woodhawker had like 78 or 85,000 subscribers, something like that, whereas now he has like 230,000 or something. So I was blown away. I mean, you think about a channel with, at the time, around 800 subscribers, going on a channel with 85,000 subscribers. It was nuts. And I mean, just to have the mindset of not caring about how many subscribers somebody had. Didn't matter what the number was. He just wanted my opinion on it because he really appreciated my video I did. Like that blew me away. That I learned from that that no matter how big I ever get, to always keep that in perspective, because everyone's going to start somewhere, and everyone's going to be low for a while on subs. The way YouTube is right now, it's so hard to grow. It's so unbelievably challenging, and the environment is beyond competitive in the gaming scene. It's insane. But I'm kind of going off on a tangent right now. I've spoken directly with Metal Jesus Rocks about a few videos I did. I did a CD video that had over 200,000 views, and I discussed with Metal Jesus Rocks prior to posting the video, just making sure it was cool to talk about stuff, and he was completely receptive to everything. So genuine, so nice. On Facebook, just Facebook Messenger, talking with Metal Jesus Rocks for like a half an hour. And this is me being a channel of, at the time, like 1,500 subscribers. What else? I've spoken with Rich in Review Tech a couple times. I was supposed to do an interview with Rich about a video I made that was extremely controversial, but not for the reasons I expected it to be. But he lost power that week during terrible storms, and the story kind of blew over, so he never came back to me, but that would have been nice. But I understand exactly, like, it's a fast-moving industry, and sometimes things line up, and sometimes they won't. I've had the fortune of becoming good, I would say good friends, like, no joke, good friends with Michael Reggie and John Riggs. Like, to the point of, if I was ever in the area, that I would want to go see them, hang out at the bar, and have a drink with them and talk to them. Like, that's how close I feel with them. And they are welcome to, like, stay at my house if they ever come to San Diego Comic-Con or anything like that. Like, and I've had the offer on the table for them, and they know that, and they've been receptive to it. So I've had so many large YouTube channels treat me as somebody instead of ignore me because I had subscribers. And it was very humbling and realize that sometimes people get caught up with the subscriber number instead of looking at the person for who they are and what they bring to the table. And I feel like YouTube sometimes perpetuates that by pushing big subscriber channels on people instead of pushing so many small creators that are doing so good and making such great content. I could name, off the top of my head, 10 incredible small YouTubers under 1,000 subscribers, and it blows my mind that it's that hard to grow, because these channels are better than some channels that have 4, 5, 600,000 subscribers. So I guess that's just how it is, or maybe it's my bias.
It's all right. I would have to say I've had a pretty similar experience with trying to network with other YouTubers. I would say the one that I have most consistently been in contact with is Dave and Joe of GameSack, and those guys are extremely friendly, very receptive, and more than willing to give you advice on stuff. Like, I did a video, my first video in like several months, a couple months ago, and I'm trying to turn it into a series. It's just a matter of me finding a partner in the meantime. But they watched the video for me, and then they gave me all sorts of wonderful advice on, like, okay, if you're editing, you need to do this and this. Maybe bring up the volume a little bit so there's a little bit of ambient noise from the video game that's playing in the background, stuff like that. And they're just really very friendly people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not everybody is very friendly. I do know I've talked to a couple people at conventions, trying to network, because that was the easiest way to talk to people, and they were like, yeah, sure, drop me a line. And then I would hear nothing back from them at all, which kind of sucks, but
that's frustrating. I vowed to myself to never do that to someone, because I've been fortunate to have people reach out to me. But at the same time, I'm a genuinely nice person, and I'm an asshole, all wrapped into one. So I'd like to think my biggest trait that I can bring to the table is be honest with people. Originally from Boston, and maybe that's instilled from my upbringing. Just everyone just kind of tells it like it is, straight to your face. So I'm always extremely receptive to people initially, and I will always give someone a shot, even if I'm completely backed up in time. I will make time to watch someone's video who reaches out to me. I will respond to them individually to talk to them about what their video and my critiques of it and what they are. It doesn't mean that I'm right or wrong. It just means this is how I personally asking me what I think about this video. Here's what I think about this video. Here's I would do to improve it. And I'm not perfect by any means, but I also know that nobody's perfect by any means. So take it for what it's worth. I I've been very surprised at the reception. People I've been working directly with that I've been extremely critical of their work, and they've been very kind back to me, saying, "Thank you. Nobody has been that straightforward with me. That's just what I'm looking for. Someone to say, your lighting sucks. Your camera angle's awful. You're mumbling. You're repeating yourself. You're saying the word way too many times. You're yelling. You're screaming at the camera. Like, so many things I've told people. And when they come back, they say, thank you, that I will use each thing you said and build upon it. And the only reason I do that is because when I started, if you watch my first videos, they're awful. Like, awful. Awful. You would be like, how are you if that's what you were? That's how bad they were. So
Okay, well, as you continue to press further into YouTube culture and all that fun stuff with the videos. I mean, you said you started off with top tens. Now you're doing like daily news. I think you do something on Friday nights. I forget what that is. It's your live chat, I believe, right?
the Friday mornings I do the SmashJT show, which is basically I got inspiration from Philip DeFranco to basically do a video game version of current events in the video game world. I wanted to differentiate it from like RGT News and Spawnwave because everyone covers the news. So I wanted to do something different. And with mine, I do controversial topics, giving both sides of the issue, then giving my take to it, which is basically how Philip DeFranco delivers information on President Trump or what's going on in Iraq or anything like that. It's just basically the video game version of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because
So
nobody really does that.
now, aside from that, are there like other projects that you would like to bring to light or maybe test out to see how well they how well they work, to see if you want to continue doing them? Or is there a chance you'll see a top 10 video again in the future? Like what's in the future for you?
Always. I mean, I've dabbled in a whole bunch of stuff. I bought a $300 and somewhat handmade mallet to smash things, physically smash them, because I thought it might play well on YouTube and get clicks, because sometimes the simplest things you can do get the most views. That was my mindset going into it. But those are my least viewed videos. So
Give my video 5,000 likes so the kitten gets it.
Exactly. Well, the way people are, they wouldn't like the video because they'd want to see it.
Yeah, there's that. Give me 5,000 reactions of some kind.
Yeah, exactly. And I will do it. But as far as like what I'm doing, I mean, I'm always thinking of new things. I'm never wanting to get stuck on the same thing. I always want to evolve my channel into what works, and every video I make is a constant adjustment to what works best and what doesn't, but keeping in mind I'm still doing what I want to do without losing my enjoyment from it. Because if I start getting bored, if I start feeling like this is a job, that's when I want to stop doing it. You know what I mean? Even though I want it to work as a job, even though I really hope that this can be something successful for me, if it ever actually feels like that to me, that's when I know it's going to be time to step away, because it's not going to be genuine.
Okay. Before we wrap up our interview and then move on to our top discussion, Mark, I feel like I'm being a hog here. Do you have any questions would you like to ask?
No, I think I'm leaning my stuff more towards the idea of like the discussion part of things, because there's stuff I want to ask, but it's stuff that's going to actually tie in more toward the stuff that we were going to talk about.
Okay. Well, then in that case, I think I'm spent on questions. So let's get to the bread and butter. Let's talk about this awesome thing that's been going on with Atari and the Atari VCS. You have a series of videos, and you were talking about your little investigation into the people behind the Atari VCS campaign and everything that goes into it, which I find fascinating.
Yep.
So I would like to give it off to you, so you can just give a quick recap to everybody about what your discoveries were in the videos.
Well, basically, to sum it up, I feel like I feel bad because I feel like I'm talking all the time here without Mark talking.
No, that's why you're the guest, and I know Mark is going to definitely chime in whenever he feels the need to.
Well, as far as my with, hold on 1 second, I might be losing you here.
Okay.
There we go. As far as my experience with the Atari VCS situation, I feel like the more I dig into it, the more I feel like it's going to be a scam and that it's going to be something that people are not getting what they think they're going to be getting, if that makes sense. I feel like the Atari VCS, it will eventually, it will be an actual console, but it will be a shadow of what people think it's going to be. And therein lies the problem.
Mm-hmm. So, Mark, what was our consensus when we last talked about the Atari VCS? That we pretty much condoned it to be the next Ouya? Was that it?
Yeah, the general thought process more or less seemed to be that you probably would have just been better off, building a Raspberry Pi, because the way that the console looked at this point, it looked like it was going to have even less to offer people than something like the NES or SNES Classic. Like, it was basically just going to be. It was just going to be something that was kind of attempting to grift off of the name Atari attached to it, rather than being a product that would do what it said it was going to do, let alone be worth the amount of money associated.
Exactly. That's kind of what my research has pointed to. If you look at the history of Atari, the VCS is owned by a company that bought the Atari name after it went bankrupt, and they sold it off. And they've had numerous Kickstarters. The vast majority of those Kickstarters failed, and people didn't get what they put their money into. And when I say Kickstarters, I mean Indiegogos. It's a scam of a company, and when things do come out, they tout it like a roaring success. But then there's 5 other things on the docket that haven't come out yet with no updates, and their name disappears off of other things like the watch. They have mini consoles coming out, handhelds that have supposedly were supposed to come out 6 months ago and haven't had an update to their site in over a year. And then not that enough is bad. But then you try to sell another console on top of that without even answering what's going on with everything else you're doing. That's where the issue comes in here. That's where it goes into the scam territory.
So, in terms of the scam territory, you uncovered something very interesting about the COO of Atari at the moment. The guy pretty much behind the whole scam, as you say. So, I believe you said he was a guy who used to be in charge of marketing for several big companies, and now he's in charge of the Atari brand, and he's pretty much just doing nothing but marketing the name in hopes that he might get investors and whatnot to buy in, which is kind of like what, believe it or not, Yu Suzuki sort of did with the Shenmue 3 where
Yep.
he used Kickstarter as a way of saying, hey, look, people want this. And what happened is a year later, he announces Deep Silver as the publisher and Sony as, one of the primary benefactors as well. So, but it doesn't seem to be going that way for Atari. So, can you level in on that?
Yeah, as far as everything I've found, it's funny because it was kind of like a wormhole. When I started digging, it just kept leading to more and more. I was shocked. I had my jaw on the ground when I saw that his whole history was just marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, he has zero video game development experience. He has zero console development experience, which is an undertaking in itself. To be able to come out with an actual console for the masses takes a really special person to be able to be behind a project like that and have it actually come to fruition. And everything in this guy's history was just marketing, straight up marketing. And well, people would comment, people defending Atari would be like, that doesn't mean he can't do it just because his history is marketing. It's like, well, no, it doesn't mean that he can't do it. And I don't mean to be casting doubt on it. But when you pair that with the history of Atari and how the name's been dragged through the mud over the past 6 to 12 months, or even 2 to 4 years, if you want to go back further to other things, and to what it is right now, and how what I could find out, this guy's the head of Atari that's making this VCS, and there was maybe 2 other people working for the company. Maybe I could only find one confirmed developer that was featured on their promo for creating the product, and that was it. And I was like, this is just a couple dudes trying to put together a massive concept, and they're hiding behind some flashy marketing and a fancy video, lying about video game footage, lying about the controller, lying about everything. They still have nothing to show for it.
Snake oil.
And they continue. Exactly. And tell you, the first sign of knowing something's going to be a scam is when the company lashes out at people calling it a scam, because they are defending themselves more than they're working on the console, because they don't want people to find out that it's a scam.
I mean, it's also really worth noting, I thought it was interesting that JT pointed out that it was specifically Indiegogo backing rather than Kickstarter backing, because Indiegogo will frequently allow projects to appear on their service that Kickstarter would not, because they violate some type of terms of service. I'm not necessarily saying that's what Atari is doing, but it is interesting that they would put their stuff up on Indiegogo, more so because, there's a certain degree of lessened restrictions there. Like, if you wanted to make yourself look like a big deal, like a big name brand, why wouldn't you put yourself on Kickstarter, the largest platform for this sort of thing?
Because, I mean, this is something that you're probably inferring and didn't say. Indiegogo doesn't require a working prototype. And as we all know, there is no working prototype for the Atari VCS. There's just a bunch of promises of what they're working on. I go back to, why is it so hard for this quote-unquote giant company to make a console? Parts that they're trying to get, they're trying to get all these big name components, AMD, and they're working with what was it, Dream Gear for their controller or whatever, and all these other parts coming together for massive scale, massive sales. And I'm like, why can't you just build this in your basement and say, this is what we want it to be, here's a prototype, subject to change, but here's what its prototype is, here are the specs for it. And everything we keep getting from these interviews are changing. When they ask Mike, I can't remember his last name, but the marketing guy, the head of VCS, what the specs are, he constantly changes that, saying, oh, well, we were going to go with this AMD part, but now we're looking at this other chipset because it's more advanced and it's cheaper, because enough time has passed that we can start working on this one now. And people are like, well, yeah, that's technology. If you wait another year, there'll be another chipset that's going to be cheap that outdates this one. And he's like,
Yeah, I mean,
right.
it's worth noting too. Like, this is the kind of shit that Duke Nukem Forever went through. Yeah, like new engines come out, new tech comes out all the time. You need to eventually finalize a piece of tech. You can't just say, "Oh, well, this new thing has come out that we're going to try to use instead." Set something, make something. If this isn't bullshit, like to me, it's the idea of Grift is constantly talking about these newer and better things that you're going to incorporate in, instead of just sitting down and making something.
Right, and that's why it's all lip service. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with that story that came out with that magazine that interviewed him. Was it Europe? That basically went to the unveiling, and the Atari VCS was just a shell, and the controller was just a shell, and the light lit up, but it didn't actually work with anything. And
Was that the
then
one that had the fake Tempest 4000 playing on the monitor?
that was separate. That was
That was a
whole
separate
other
event.
lie. That's a separate lie. Like
Uh-huh.
there's so many lies they've had that it's almost borderline comical. Like if this was a movie, it would be like the Naked Gun behind the scenes of what it looks like at the Atari VCS office, what they're doing. Um, as far as that situation, that magazine basically interviewed him. He knew nothing about the console. They asked legitimate questions, and he answered with ridiculous answers. And when the magazine came forward saying, "Okay, here's our interview with them," and completely exposed them for what they were as frauds, Atari VCS was in complete damage control, and they were like pointing fingers at the magazine, saying, "They're lying. This is not what it was. This was not the interview. They were just trying to get a hot take on a story. None of this is true." And then the magazine was like, "Okay, well, here's the recording of us talking to Mike at Atari VCS and backing up our entire article, basically word for word of what we wrote." And Atari VCS was silent.
And apparently Atari wasn't done there with damage control. If I recall, you, RGT, and so many other YouTubers were called out by them for, for calling them a sham or a scam or whatever. And I have to hear about your thoughts the moment they mention your name.
And it blew me away. I was like, are they really going here right now? Like, it wasn't my story. It wasn't even RGT's story. It was Reddit. It was Reddit's story that was basically exposing Atari VCS for the frauds that they were, and it was just RGT and me reporting on the Reddit story. Basically, here's the dude that made Tempest 4000. Here's him on his website saying did not make Tempest 4000 to run on the VCS because he doesn't know the specs of the VCS yet. So that's impossible for it to be running on a Linux-based platform when it hasn't been developed for a Linux-based platform yet. And Atari VCS called the YouTubers frauds and fake right away after we ran those videos. And we made videos be like, here's what Atari VCS said on their Indiegogo page. Here's how they changed what they said after we made our videos and said that we lied about everything. And if you look at the timestamps on the webpage, basically said we're allowed to use different footage. This is just for we call it demo purposes only, or promotional purposes only, not actual console being used. None of that was present before we ran our stories. And then they changed it and then called us liars. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. You can't rewrite history and say that people are calling you a liar. First off, lied about it. Secondly, you changed your wording on the page, and somehow how is that even better? All you're doing is admitting that it's not running on something because you don't have anything right now.
And then you went off and you tried to contact them, and it took almost a few days for them to reply back to you with the most generic of PR emails.
Yeah, I've been back and forth. It's Michael Arts is the head of the Atari VCS. I've been back and forth with them probably 12 times since that initial response. I think they saw my video basically calling them out on such a ridiculous brush off response. I think they realized that they shouldn't be. It was something I learned early on in my YouTube career, is what I said earlier. It doesn't matter how many subscribers you have, or what your how large your channel is. A channel with 10 subscribers has the same reach potential as a channel with 50 million subscribers if the content is good. And I think Atari realized that, made the video. They're like, oh crap, even though he's a small channel, it's starting to get a lot of views. We need to do damage control on this. They responded back again, and I basically said, okay, I want answers. That's all anybody wants. And this was, how funny, June 29th, a month and 1 day ago today. Hi, Ted. Thanks for the reply. So I'm working with Ted, who's part of the outreach PR team that's paid off by Atari VCS, who doesn't even have their own PR team. They pay for a team, which I made a video about. They pay anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 a month to retain these people as PR. And I said, okay, thanks for the reply. I understand you're busy, and it's only natural for the majority of YouTubers and viewers to be skeptical of this project to a point based off the history, failed Indiegogo projects, paired with the silence on the front so many Atari products over the past few years. Here are some questions from viewers. Why should we trust Atari when they haven't followed through on recent previous products they've attempted to crowdfund? Then I go through a list of them. Roller Coaster Tycoon disappeared without a trace. The game ban has no updates regarding the release status. The Atari Retro Handheld, no updates. Atari Cryptocurrency. You guys are trying to invest in cryptocurrency. And then I went on with other questions. And each of these are cited. This is the very short version of this email, by the way, because I went with citations with everything. I didn't want to mess up on a question when I have one chance at it, you know. Why does this system even need to be crowdfunded? If it's such a great idea, why couldn't Atari just make it and sell it with their own money? Why do you still not have a working prototype? Specifically, do you plan to have a working prototype? Who is in charge of your social media accounts, and why do you feel like they're handling questions in such an unprofessional manner? Why did Michael Arts not have any answers for his interview with Register? That was the magazine I was talking about, the UK website. He is in charge of the creation of the Atari VCS and had little to no information to provide regarding legitimate, basic questions from an interviewer. Why did Atari make a public statement calling out the Register as irresponsible trolls in the professional positions as a source? The recording they provided did more than enough to make Atari look bad there. Why did Atari call out YouTubers on their official Facebook page as fake news when they had presented factual information on faked footage that was later changed to reflect the truth only after it had been caught? What are the specific specs that will be utilized by the console, and why have these not been nailed down to begin production yet? What is the system expected to be able to do that will create a strong buying proposition for gamers and customers? I'm almost done here, sorry.
No, it's fascinating. These are all these questions that just came out of you that you had to ask them, huh?
Yep. Will happen to the backers' money if the system never comes to light? Will it be returned to them? Will it be gone/sunk into research and development? Many have claimed that Fred Chesney is desperately looking for an out and to sell Atari and walk away with money in his pocket. Is there any truth to this? That's a very deep question that first off, I don't know enough about to speak to, and even if I did, we wouldn't have enough time to even open that one. Because from what I have, what I've dug out of that, Fred Chesney's and his relationship with Atari, you can make a mobster movie about. You have to say about the allegations that Atari tried to Dream Gear's controller design, and when Dream Gears pulled out of the deal, it caused delays. Regarding the physical casing of the Atari VCS, it's not going to be able to hold an A10 Pro E the
Bleh.
APU, the Radeon chip, and the bridging chips for the I/O devices. Even with that version, with a laptop-styled cooling system in the case, it's not designed to flow air for ventilation, and the footprint seems far too small to pack in what you're planning based off of the specs on the Indiegogo for this to work. How will this discrete logic be resolved in the current design as it stands?
Sounds
That's
like
a
a bunch
pretty
of reasonable questions, Mark. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. Some of it is like overall, it seems like reasonable questions, but some of it is a bit more. It's probably more than you would expect them to answer than others, I guess.
Oh no, absolutely. I went into this not expecting them to even respond.
Mhm.
So I was gonna bring the full 300 army at this when they gave me a chance to ask a question. I was like, here we go. My last question was, why is Atari not giving more updates on the status of the VCS at every step along the way via more emails to backers, even a weekly blog on the site? There is nothing.
Any questions you think you could ask Mark?
I mean,
I tried to
I
cover
honestly feel like that. Yeah, that covers so much of it that it's beyond where I would go with it. Like that is a lot of shit to cover. Have they provided any type of information at all? Have they answered any of it, or is it just twisting in the wind?
Ted Brockwood from Uber Strategist, the company that they hired, he wrote, first off, I totally understand the skepticism on crowdfunding. I owned an Ouya after all. Smiley face. So we won't take offense
Go
to these
fuck
questions.
yourself.
I wish I could be that professional. He goes, I owned an Ouya after all, so we won't take offense at the questions. My wife has suffered through me crowdfunding all sorts of smart home stuff too. Our house is starting to look, and he goes off on this random tangent on things that I'm not even asking.
Oh, basically, he's saying I'm a hoarder who spent too much money on crowdfunding. That's great. That like we're not friends.
He's literally trying to legitimize crowdfunding by talking about how dumb he is with his money.
And let's be clear. Let's be clear. Crowdfunding is great. I have a few crowdfunded board games in my apartment at this point, and I've crowdfunded others that I'm like 99% certain I'm going to get. You know,
But Mark,
crowdfunding has saved the goddamn board game industry at this point. You know,
exactly. And here's my frustration: is what you just said. It brings so much to the table, so much potential, so much opportunity for things that would otherwise not exist.
sure.
That's why I'm so pissed about this, because if you get a stain like this on the crowdfunding, it will ruin it for potential successful ideas in the future, because people will be scared because such a big name scammed people out of so much money. That's why I take such an issue with this. I don't. At the end of the day, I don't even care about the Atari VCS. I care about that right there. What you just said. I care about these board games being revitalized. I care about ideas that can be brought to life from legitimate people that don't have the money but have all the ideas in the world that can make it work if they just get that money. And with something like this coming in, it takes the air out of people. You know how people will remember this for the rest of their life.
The Atari
Yeah, I mean,
name
it's-
will never recover from such a debacle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, the Atari recovered from like 2 or 3 debacles ago, so that part I'm not so.
But still, I mean, even if, let's say, the Atari VCS comes to fruition, and even though it's a shell of its promised self, I mean, what's not to say that the Atari name will not be sold 30 years from now, and no one's going to give a flying shit about it? Because, oh, it's Atari. Yeah, we know about your sketchy history. We don't care.
Listen, let's be clear. Let's be clear. In like this is off topic. Like this is going into the Atari thing, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But gamers have incredibly short memories. The Atari brand name wasn't worth anything, 2 years ago. The Atari brand name wasn't worth anything like 25 years ago when the gaming market crashed. Nobody cares. Gamers flip constantly. They see a brand name come up and they have that association of, yeah, like sure you did a bad thing or whatever, but what are you offering me now? if gamers had some type of a long-term memory as far as that sort of thing goes, that would apply. I would absolutely agree with you. But if that were the case, Atari wouldn't have had a second, third, fourth, fifth chance to come back. The Jaguar would have tanked them. The third-person group-based Alone in the Dark knockoff thing that they made on Steam a couple of years ago would have tanked them. Like the gaming crash of the 80s would have tanked them. People don't remember that shit. They don't care. I'm not saying that this won't be terrible, and I'm not saying that it won't have a negative impact for Kickstarter. The Atari brand name, nobody's going to fucking care. If somebody decides to revive that 10 years from now, people are going to be like, okay, do you have something to show us? If so, ooh, gimme, grab hands. It's the brand name isn't relevant. It doesn't matter. People don't remember that stuff in a lot of cases. If they did, like we wouldn't have seen the Xbox ever go anywhere. Nobody would have ever bought that console because they would have remembered, fuck, I hate Windows, it sucks, and nobody would have ever bought that damn thing.
It's all playing upon gamers' nostalgia, which is very in vogue in 2018. It's retro is at an all-time high right now. Basically, you think about it. Think of all of us. We've grown up. We get jobs. Well, some of us get jobs, and we get money to buy video games. And our heart always remembers what we grew up with, and that's what these companies are preying upon. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, unless you have a company like the name of Atari being bought out by somebody else to take advantage of that nostalgia for the pure and sole reason of taking advantage of people's nostalgia. They don't care about video games. They don't care about if it's going to work or not. They just want people's money, and they want to use nostalgia to do that. And that grinds my Peter Griffin gears.
So, at the end of the day, what are the chances that the Atari VCS will end up on Guru Larry's list of Kickstarter scams?
It all depends on how you define a scam, because live up to the promise of what they say. No, is that a scam? It depends. It depends who you ask. I mean, me, it's deceiving people because you promise the world and you give them a crate of eggs. It's like it's not really, it's not what I wanted. It's not what I cared about. It's not what you told me you were going to give me. It's something. It's like you're a kid on Christmas and you ask for a Nintendo 64 and you get that cheap Chinese knockoff system that doesn't have any of the games, but it says the Nintendo 52. It's not what you thought it was going to be, and that's exactly what this. I'm convinced, in anything outside of that I would eat my words. I would be completely flabbergasted if they come out with a console that is any way, shape, or form anywhere close to what they're promising and telling people it's going to be able to do. And beyond that, even more importantly, which is why I think this is a fail, and I hate to be so negative because I like to look at video games in a positive light, but even if the console comes out, all the stars align, and it's the most amazing thing ever, they don't have any developers. They don't have anybody that will be making games for it. And they're just going to put a console out there and hope that people support it, hope that the Linux platform is something that will be easy to develop for. But if you only have an install base of 10,000 people or 100,000 people, I mean, that's not enough for a AAA developer to care. That's not enough for an indie developer to care, especially with how competitive the indie scene on the Nintendo Switch is, the indie scene on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, the Steam. Like, there's so many avenues right now that are available to quality indie campaigns, indie companies. It just, I don't see a place for another console in the market. And this even plays into a whole nother topic that we're not going to talk about tonight. But when people start talking about Google maybe making a game console, I'm like, I from a personal standpoint of a game collector and someone that owns every system known to man to piss his wife off, I think that's the only reason I do it. I can't see myself buying a Google system. I just don't, unless it does something groundbreaking. I don't see a need for another console in my house. I have everything I ever wanted, a backlog of games that I'll never finish in a lifetime. Unless a game system comes out on top of these that completely blows me away, or the average consumer away, what's going to sell them on it? And that kind of goes beyond the Atari VCS issue, but it matters with the Atari VCS because they're not going to be able to compete with what's out right now. And they're saying they don't want to compete with that. They want to go their own direction with it. It's great, but it's not going to be successful because the whole mass of people directing the game industry, and it's in a very good place right now. Why do we need to leave that area? You know?
I mean, at the end of the day, if they were just going to offer a platform that would allow people to play old games on it, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. They don't have the ability to publish the games that are owned by other companies, so you wouldn't see them being able to publish like Pitfall or something. But they could at least publish like the old Atari games that people might want to play on something and make it like an NES classic. Like, where else could you go with it aside from that?
That's exactly my point. Like, that's what I feel like they're going to do with it, but that already exists. I saw one at Target for $30 the other day. So, and it's the Atari. It's a mini Atari console. It plays all the old Atari games, and $30. But why would someone spend $300 for an HDMI port? First off, why the hell do you need HD graphics on an Atari game?
Yeah, and it's
Because I want to see those sharp edges on those damn pixels, sir.
Right.
Well, I mean, the major thing to keep in mind also is the fact that if you look at any company that people have talked about potentially getting into the game industry at this point, outside of the three that currently are, because there have been rumors about everybody wanting to make their own game platform. Steam was going to make their platform with the Steam box. That was going to be a thing. Google has been talked about. Amazon has been talked about. Apple was talked about for a bit.
Tried to do it.
Yeah.
Well, they
Nobody
tried with
wants
the
that
Pippin.
shit.
Nobody remembers
I mean,
the Pippin.
Right. I mean, nobody wants that shit. Well, everybody remembers the Pippin now because everybody talks about how nobody remembers the Pippin. But nobody wants that shit. Nobody wants a fourth console to have to worry about. And these are all companies that have billions and trillions of dollars to work off of. Amazon is at a point right now where, for the first time since their inception, they have hit in the black, because they were always throwing money into R&D to make new projects. They're at the point now where they don't have anything else to make. They have billions of dollars they could throw at a console, and they're not. They're not doing that because nobody wants a fourth console.
Well, I mean,
so you're talking about Atari, who would have the money they get from crowdfunding. The hell are you going to make with that?
exactly.
Dude, people couldn't even make a good Mega Man knockoff with the money you get from crowdfunding.
No, exactly. What are they at? $3 million? Like, here's the thing: if everyone's talking about it, like, oh my god, they raised $3 million. That's pathetic.
Yeah, this is like the wrestling company debate. This is like the wrestling company debate. Freaking somebody could come out tomorrow and get like $3 million to make another wrestling company. Okay, who's gonna care? There's already like four quote unquote major companies that exist right now. Nobody has room for a fifth. Nobody cares.
And what's it going to do to differentiate and do better than what's already out there?
Nothing.
And here's the thing. I mean, just to put it in perspective, everyone's talking about how excited Atari was to get $3 million from Kickstarter or Indiegogo in 3 days or whatever. You know how much money Sony spent making God of War?
Probably a bit more than $3 million.
It was about $55 billion. And we're talking about $3 million for a console? I mean, I think people get caught up in the numbers and they think, oh, $3 million is a lot of money. $3 million is a bucket. That's a drop in the ocean for creating a game console. I can only imagine how much money Microsoft put in to develop the Scorpio, the Xbox One, the next one they're working on right now. Like, how much money in R&D they're putting into that day after day, and how much money they've lost to the Kinect on the R&D, and how that failed miserably, and they poured money into that. Just there's so much money that,
and they tried it for two console generations too. At that,
exactly. And I wish. Here's the thing: I could have been a very rich man and saved them a lot of money if they just consulted with me and I said, just don't do the Connect thing. Just don't.
But then how else am I going to play Just Dance?
Well, exactly.
I don't want to sit here and use my phone to, motion track me on the game. That just looks weird.
Yeah. And if Sony consulted me on the PSVR, I would have said, don't do it with the low resolution. You need to up the resolution.
Listen, Robert.
Oh.
I've seen you in real life. You doing Just Dance at all would look weird.
I'd like to see what you do look like at Just Dance, Mark.
I look like an epileptic zombie.
And I still want to see that.
No. I have it. I played it. No.
All right. So with the this whole Atari VCS mess, at the end of the day, does I forget? Someone remind me. Does Indiegogo allow you to pretty much cash out right away? Like you don't have to wait the 30 days or so to receive the funding.
There are some crowdfunding who do that. I don't think Indiegogo does.
I think no, they do have something because I have a buddy that got his money back from the Atari VCS before the time ran out where he's allowed to. But there is a time frame. I think it's 30 days. Not sure, but I know there is something to get the money back.
There are crowdfunding services where you can keep the money even if you don't reach your goal. I don't think Indiegogo is one of those.
I thought you. That's a different thing. Sorry, I thought you were saying if someone buys it, can they get their money back? And it's like, yes, within 30 days, but after that, money could be
places like Kickstarter and all that, you have 30 days, and what you're doing is you're doing a pre-order, and once the Kickstarter successfully reaches its goal, then they cash out on you. Some places, I think I've done it with Indiegogo for one project. It was for a video game museum out in California. They cashed out the $5 like pretty much immediately upon me checking out, well before the 30 days.
If that's the case, then yeah, Indiegogo probably allows them to keep the money whether they're successful or not.
So
I don't know.
So that might be another reason why Indiegogo might be such a highly used platform for a lot of. And let's look at it. A lot of these scams that have happened on Indiegogo or have happened on Indiegogo. Most of the Kickstarter stops them dead in their tracks once they detect something's amiss.
Yep. I think with the Indiegogo thing, even if it doesn't come to fruition, worst case scenario, Atari doesn't make a console and they just disappear like they have in the past with other things. I think a lot of people are going to be out of $300 and they're going to blame it on R&D. We spent all this money on building the console and it ended up costing us way more than we thought and we just can't do it and we don't have the money to pay you back. Sorry. And then there'll be a big lawsuit and nobody will see anything.
So, I would like the conversation to continue on, but I feel as if we're going to start ticking away from, future episodes of the topic of which you want to talk about. So, I'm thinking we can turn it over for a few questions with people in the chat room. So, if you have any questions about Jeff or Smash TV channel in general, or something you want to ask me and Mark out of the blue before we wrap it up here, so go right ahead. The floor is now yours. If there's too long of a period of time, then we will go ahead and end the show. However, while we're waiting for our first set of questions from the audience, let's do some plugs. Jeff, please, plug away.
I'm probably the worst person to ever plug because I don't know what I'm doing an hour from now. Never mind tomorrow. I kind of fly by night with my videos. I'm like the Atari VCS, except I actually make things. As far as my video today, yeah, right. My video today talked about my thoughts on Octopath Traveler, spoiler-free on YouTube. So if anyone's interested in getting first impressions on Octopath Traveler, I'm 40 hours in, and I'm giving it a first impressions. It's a very long game, very fun game. But that's what I'm working
Hey
on
man,
right now.
hey man, you're more professional than Video Game Donkey is.
Well,
Listen,
here's the thing,
I like Video Game Donkey, but fuck that video. Fuck that video forever.
here's the thing. I haven't seen that video. I've heard a lot of controversy surrounding it, people not liking his take on the game. I didn't watch the video on purpose because I wanted to make my first impressions video today without being influenced by anybody. So I do plan on watching the video, and I'm interested to see where the separation is from.
My only
Mark,
issue
what do you
with it,
thoughts?
my only issue with it is that he made that video like a couple months ago, however long ago it was, talking about
Mhm.
video game journalists and like dunking on them, which is his thing. And he made some valid points, but one of the points that he made was that reviewers will go in without having finished the game and write a review on it. And then he did Octopath Traveler and did a review on a game that he didn't finish.
Does he say in the video they didn't finish it?
I don't remember if he says it in the video that he didn't finish it. He does say after the fact that he didn't finish it. But to me, it's just like he says, "Well, I played 10 hours," and it's like, nah. Like when we were doing the stuff for Die Hard Game Fan regularly, our expectation was that you didn't have to complete a game to review it, because sometimes you're just going to hate a game. Sometimes it's just not going to work for you, and you're not going to want to get through it, and that's fine. That's a condemnation of the game, not you as a reviewer. But there was a minimum expectation of time to devote to it. For JRPGs, the expectation was 20 hours, because that's long enough for you to have seen everything that game is likely to throw at you. It's very unlikely that it's going to make some kind of significant change. If you hate the experience and you want to stop playing it, then 20 hours is probably long enough. And for a guy who's making actual money off of this stuff, I feel it's kind of shitty that he would devote half the time that I would have devoted to it for free.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
let me just before you go to that question, Rob. I just want to say my take on it, and I have a completely different stance than the norm that pisses a lot of people off. I've actually had conversations on Twitter with people about this, but I'm of the standpoint of if a game sucks, the game sucks, and if it takes me more than 10 hours, if it takes me more than 5 hours to enjoy my experience, the game sucks. I don't care if it's the best game ever 20 hours in. I'm not going to be wasting my time with it if it hasn't hooked me at 5 hours, because at that point you already have the gameplay down. You already know what to expect. I'm on the phone back.
Robert's having flashbacks right now.
Yeah.
Guys, priorities. We need to find this other penguin. As far as my video games and reviews, I haven't seen Donkey's video. I don't want to give him a pass without seeing it, but I just think of myself, and I've reviewed games where I played probably 5 hours, 6 hours into it of a 30-hour experience, and gave it a poor score because I didn't finish the game. And I said in the review I didn't finish it because the game sucked. Like, why should I have to subject myself? If the developer didn't put enough time into the game to care about it, why should I? Is the way I look at that.
Oh, sure. Like, there's definitely going to be moments where it's just like, I can't stand this fucking thing. It's a piece of shit. If he were talking like Beyond the Beyond, for example, like, no, I would totally understand it. But it's a game that is going to be getting a lot of positive press. He had to release the video after reviews had come out, so he knew very much what the reception was. I think if you're going to be writing a piece of content like that, where it's going to be getting a lot of positive press and your point of view is going to be controversial, there are better ways of doing it than he did.
Okay.
It's like that's absolutely a case where you need to watch the video to.
I feel like this is really a discussion for another day, because this is quite the conversation I'm watching going on right here. But I don't want to keep the people, So this is actually a question from Grumpy Munchkins directed to all of us, and we will start with you, Mark. What is your game of the year, or what do you think is going to be your game of the year?
Oh fuck, I don't know. I haven't played nearly as many games this year as I have in other years. God, I'm trying to think. What did I play this year that was Game of the Year?
Well, Monster Hunter World
My
did
friend-
come out.
I guess probably Monster Hunter World. My friend Joel stopped by. Joel, do you remember anything that you played that would have been like Game of the Year for you outside of maybe Monster Hunter World?
God of War.
Not God of War. Yeah, I didn't play it. What, didn't that come out last year? Ni no Kuni 2? Did it? Okay.
No, that came out a few months ago.
Yeah. I might have to try that then. Yakuza. I want to say Yakuza 6 came out this year. I haven't played it yet. It's still sitting on my shelf in the plastic, but I really need to play that. Monster Hunter World is probably going to be my game of the year by default, but it's just like I just haven't played a lot of games this year. I've been getting more into like board gaming type stuff, so I've been getting people over here to like play games on stream and whatnot. But like the games that I played this year have mostly been stuff where it's like it's good, but it's not like making me jump up and down and go like, oh my god, this is the best experience. Probably it would be Monster Hunter World at this point, because I don't know of anything else that's coming out like towards the end of the year that's gonna really supplant that.
Monster
And
Hunter Generation?
No, old school Monster Hunter is not going to be enough for me, even with the largest monster count in the franchise. It's just, I'm tired of that particular type of Monster Hunter.
Mhm.
God of War I enjoyed for what it was, but it did not compel me to complete it.
Mhm.
So, there you go. There probably will be other games that will come out between now and December that will make me change my mind on it. But as it stands right now, yeah, probably Monster Hunter World.
Okay, Jeff, for you, what's so far standing out as Game of the Year to you?
You know what's funny is last week I was at San Diego Comic-Con and I had the opportunity to play Spider-Man, and I made a video on that a few days ago, and I will tell you guys, off topic but on topic to an earlier discussion, that video got almost 25,000 views in 2 days.
Which video was this?
My first impressions of Spider-Man on PlayStation 4.
Oh yeah, Spider-Man comes out this year. I might actually, that might be, because I really like the developer behind it. It does still look like another one of those Arkham type games, but I like those games when they're done well, so that one I would think might be mine. Joel also pointed out for him, Red Dead Redemption 2 is probably going to be his game of the year, sight unseen.
I thought that got pushed back to next year, though.
Did it get pushed back to next year?
Yeah.
Let me check.
Early next year, I believe, is when it got pushed back.
Well, while we're
Nope,
waiting-
October 26, 2018. Unless it got pushed back in the past couple of days, Wikipedia still has it listed for October.
Oh, okay, well.
Yep,
I can't
as
wait
of
to...
July 23rd, they're still saying that the release date is October.
All right.
I would say, Mark, if you get a chance, watch my Spider-Man video on YouTube.
Will do.
My first impressions on it, and I was blown away because I went into it and it just what you were saying. I was worried it was going to be an Arkham clone. I was worried it was going to be just a reskin of Batman and Spider-Man's clothing. And playing it firsthand, it felt thing like that. It was like it felt like its own game. Like Insomniac did such a good job making it a unique experience, and using the webs to fly through the city felt so natural. Like I've never played a Spider-Man game in the past where I press a button to shoot a web and it goes to where I want it to go. Then I swing to where exactly I want to go and stop where I want to and climb up where everything felt so perfect. I'm like, the controls were spot on for it, which is something you don't really think about very much with a Spider-Man game, but it's really the most important part. And they nailed it. The combat was awesome. The actual storyline with Shocker in the bank at the beginning is funny. The commentary between the two is hysterical, and the actual storyline, screenplay of what takes place there is really quality. So I think my game of the year is going to be Spider-Man. I don't really foresee anything else that would take that down. I thought Octopath Traveler would have a shot at it, but the more I'm playing Octopath Traveler, the more I'm seeing the cracks in the beast. And it's a great game, but it does a lot of things wrong or it does a lot of things not the way I would have done them if I was making the game.
All right. For me, I would have to just say Monster Hunter World is my game of the year at the moment. I have spent so much time playing that game. I mean, granted, being a dad, working 6 days a week, doesn't really give me a whole lot of time to play the game and, get as high of an HR rank as, so many other people who have been playing it since, February. But it is such a phenomenal game, and it's a great entry point for the series for a bunch of newcomers who've never played the game before. It's extremely accessible. It's a lot of fun. It's very fluid. The controls are very responsive. It's a stellar game, and it's just downright gorgeous, to be truthfully honest, too. If anything were to dethrone that, maybe Red Dead Redemption might steal my time away from it. I've actually been playing quite a bit of RPGs too this year. This is probably the most I've ever played. I have the new Atelier game that came out about 3 months ago. I got Lost Child, which has already stolen several hours from me. Shining Resonance. I've been playing. What we were just talking about a few seconds ago, and I'm now having a brain fart, which shows you that the night is probably about to come to an end.
I can tell you what my worst game of the year was.
Huh?
I can tell you what my worst game of the year is.
Oh, go ahead.
Fucking Agony. Fucking, I was gonna stream that shit, and then Joel came over. He was just like, "Why don't we just play that?" And I was like, "All right." I got an hour and a half into that thing, and I just tapped out. I couldn't do it. He says fucking caca.
A lot of people were saying Agony had the chance to be Game of the Year from the screenshots of it, and then it comes out and it falls on its face.
Oh yeah, the tech behind it is terrible. There's constantly just like you remember in the first Mass Effect where you would see the under polygons load in and then like the over polygons on top of it. Yeah, like in a game in 2018, current year argument, that's happening, and you're just like, nah. And then on top of that, like it's just an edgelord's idea of what hell would be like. So it's, there's like naked women everywhere and like naked women monsters and just like fucking vaginas and penises everywhere, and you're just like, okay.
It's
Is
going
this
for
it?
pure shock with you.
Yeah, like there's nothing scary happened in the whole time period, and then I died.
All right then. Well, I mean, I think it's time to call it an evening. Jeff, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, hearing your stories of your past and your future on YouTube, and I wish you the best of luck as well.
Yeah, Rob, it was a pleasure, Mark. Both of you guys, I can't thank you enough for allowing me to be a guest.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I would love to have you on again in the future too, if it's something you would like to do.
Absolutely, like I told you, I'm more than happy to do it more often. It's just more of a matter of timing and family and adjusting, but I can always try to make things.
All right. So if anybody's still out there, do tune in tomorrow night for Game Jam on this Twitch channel right here. Me and Lance, we haven't figured out what we're going to play. I'm not sure if it's going to play Black Desert Online or more Doom mods. And also tune in this Wednesday for 3 Vets and a Noob. Matt is not going to be in town again. He's away on work. His wife will be taking over. So me, Lance, Mrs. Hitoshi, and our nooblet Rico is going to be running around like idiots in the world of Left 4 Dead 2. So please tune in for 2 hours of comedy, camaraderie, and complete stupidity. Grumpy wants to see you play Agony, Mark. or maybe you, JT.
I don't know who he's talking to, but I'm sure whoever plays it on a live stream would be entertaining, just screaming
I
absurdities.
still have the rental copy, and I'm considering it. I hate myself.
All right, and with that, I want to say thank you to everyone, and have yourself a good night.
Later, guys.